现在将录制本次会议。
Sorry, there's some Chinese lettering word coming back here, but it's based on Hytera's standard tetra-axis network. And this configuration is typically designed for the channel business, all right, because it's small, it's fast deployable. So if we talk about the main features, it is lightweight. It is extremely easy to learn. It's not complicated anymore. It's not like the olden days where Tetra was extremely difficult to configure and to deploy and all of that. It's far easier. And it also, because it is limited to 5 base stations based on the DBR5 outdoor base station, it is also extremely easy to maintain. What this system obviously introduces, obviously your full voice capabilities are that of Tetra. In other words, all the security features that Tetra also offers, from end-to-end encryption to standard AES encryption, as well as authentication, and of course your SDS services. This solution is based on the distributed architecture. So there is no more requirement for a centralized switch. In other words, the backbone is also easier. Sorry, can you just mute your mic? There's a lot of feedback I'm getting. I'll appreciate it. All right. So what does Tetra Smart system offers? Firstly, it is a high cost efficiency. Now, due to the fact that it's going to be small, easy maintained, it's fast to be deployed, it doesn't require a lot of infrastructure to be deployed, it delivers a high cost efficiency. All right. Second thing, it's compact and easy to handle, and I'll elaborate that on that. Some of you have already maybe have seen the Hytera's outdoor base station single carrier. It is literally, you can mount it on a pole. It is IP rated, so it's weatherproof, dustproof. So you literally put on a pole with an antenna cabling onto the top, and you're golden. No more is the days of having container equipment with air conditioning and all of that for this specific solution. All right, it is very easy to handle. Then, of course, I've mentioned the free setup, easy configuration, really fast, and of course the high availability and easy maintenance due to the fact that it is fast. And then, of course, in terms of the security, what this offers is the standard Tetra package of what Tetra can offer you. Like I've mentioned before, your end-to-end encryption, your AES 256, as well as your authentication, typically what a Tetra solution offers. And of course, one of the features that I like the most is, of course, the network auto learning. So what that entails is the fact that you can easily expand this network to the maximum of obviously 5 base stations very quickly with very little sort of configuration that you need to do. You can simply just add on a new base station and it configure a couple of settings, and it will auto learn the rest of the network because it's based on a distributed architecture. Yes.
Sorry, Ray. We're still just seeing the front cover of the presentation. So I'm not sure if you
That's
are
strange.
just still discussing overall, or if you have started sharing.
It's supposed to. You're not. It's supposed to change already. What's? Hold on. Let me try again.
It means you got to start at the beginning again.
Yeah, most likely. Okay, let me just try, and I'm not going to do it via the presentation mode. Let me try this. See. Can everybody see my screen now with obviously the different slides on the left?
That's correct. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, I'm going to do it this way. I don't know why it's not giving you the full one. All right, so this is what Tetra Smart entails. So it's dedicated for the channel business. Lightweight, easy to learn, easy to configure, easy to maintain. It's based on the DBR5 outdoor base station. Limit to 5 base stations, so it's a small system. All right, it's not to be confused with large organizations or large mining solutions where you deploy a typical Tetra network of 6 or more sites. It's for your smaller, medium, and small market that requires Tetra. All right, based on the distributed architecture. And then, of course, this is what it offers. All right, in terms of summary, the one that I'm most excited about is obviously the network auto learning, and we will elaborate on that a little bit on some other slides. The high cost efficiency of this solution is also very competitive within the market if you compare it to other Tetra solutions out there in terms of the easy to deploy and the scale that you can achieve with this and the minimum infrastructure required for this. So if we go into the solution details quickly, this is basically what it consists of. So you've got your control layer, which is your administration, your network management, all of that, which is literally a web URL logging into the base station itself. There's no longer a requirement for a server that runs these specific applications. If some of you might be familiar with the standard Tetra deployment in either from Hytera or Motorola or any other manufacturer, you'll typically find that all the generation solutions of Tetra runs with specific servers running those specific components such as NMS, dispatch, and so forth. But what Hytera has done here specifically with our smart architecture is that this is now IP based and lives within the base stations themselves. So you literally all you require is an IP connection from the base station to wherever you want to have the command and center display, or of course the network administration field. You can do this remotely if you connect the base station to obviously internet breakout, but that then reduces your security. However, the option is there, so that makes it extremely easy to access the network, to check what's wrong with the network in terms of fault finding, and of course your dispatch, right? And then of course the radio system layer. This is solely based on the outdoor base station. It's a maximum of 5 base stations, all right? But do not get confused with base stations and carrier grade, all right, in terms of carriers. Each outdoor base station is a single carrier. In other words, you'll get your typical 4 Tetra channels out of it. However, you can double up on that. So you can still have 5 base stations at 2 carrier each, which is sufficient enough for, like I mentioned, your medium to small mining solutions, refineries that are smaller, as well as maybe some small municipalities that require the security and maintenance free, of course, what Tetra offers you, and of course the maturity of the Tetra standard. It is extremely matured. It's now just been developed a little bit more easier. And then of course, from your mobile user equipment layer, of course, any Tetra terminal that is compatible with it. Tetra being an open standard, you typically have the capability of using any Tetra terminal that you wish. Obviously, it can be Hytera, which we prefer, but it can be Motorola. It can be any of the other Tetra terminals because of open standard. The most fundamental thing about this is it's based on distributed architecture. All right. So Tetra typically comes in 2 sort of network configuration. One is centralized and the other one is distributed. So centralized requires a very expensive sort of Tetra switching component, which is most likely your brain of your network, and it also needs to require a sort of like an IP ring fence configuration to make sure that the network is an uptime of 99.99%. But if you look at the benefits of a distributed network, each base station or that is now connected to this specific network does part of the configuration, or does part of the switching sort of requirement of what the typical centralized switch will do. So in other words, you in the event that the connection from base station 1 is severed to base station 2, the network doesn't necessarily go down, because of the fact that each and every base station is capable of running all the switching and voice prompt components of your Tetra network. And then, of course, it's web-based NMS and applications, making it extremely less infrastructure required to run the specific network. If we go to the outdoor base station, I have one in my office. If you haven't seen it physically, it's literally very small. It's less than 10 kgs, all right? In other words, this, if we go to the performance of this is a typical RF power of 20 watts. It is IP65, as I mentioned before, so it can literally be mounted on a pole outside. You don't have to worry about air conditioning and all of that, because it's built in sort of like a heat sink sort of shell, which obviously dissipates any heat that this device generates. But because it's newer technology, it operates in a far lower temperature than that of your typical Tetra base stations. And then, of course, in terms of your easy maintenance, it's literally two screws at the bottom of this base station that you open up, and there is your component inside that in the event that you want to swap or change, or a power supply that might have gone faulty, or etc., it is literally popping off 2 screws, opening it up, and changing the components inside that it requires. This is also easily compatible with solar solutions. All right, you don't require any sort of inverters or any of those equipment when you deploy a solar solution to this. It is already supported in that, so you literally plug in your solar solution into this base station and you're ready to go. It is obviously, because of newer technology, it's got your lower power consumption, and of course the base station also runs what we call an auto idle functionality. In other words, what that means is, in the event that that specific portion of the carrier CH channels, all right, there's 4 in each carrier, is not being used at that present time during operational hours, it then switches off into idle mode and does not consume power, meaning that you're constantly saving power and only use power as and when your system is being used, which also then at the bottom line of your end user clients can save money on power consumption if you compare that to the typical power consumption of that of larger Tetra base stations. And then of course the installation portion of it. It is small. There's the dimensions. It's less than 10 Ks. You can literally mount it on a pole. It's got brackets at the back. You literally just need to put it on a mounting pole and you're ready. This is also very popular in sort of Tetra gap filling solutions. In other words, you can mount the outdoor base station onto a trailer and then literally have a mobile movable base station. All right, which makes it extremely flexible in that arena as well. All right. So here are just some of the base station main features. All right. So in terms of your power consumption, is 60 watt over 24 hour online. 20 watt power, and obviously your light port for boarding. So in other words, those are the features that we've mentioned. Very straightforward. If we go to the capacity of what the system can do, like I said before, it's maximum of 5 base stations. Each of these base stations can carry can be duplicated, so you can put 2 of them together, which will then make it still a single base station in terms of how many bases the system has, but then you'll have 10 carriers each. All right. All right, so your maximum amount of users, typically mobile user subscribers, 100 users basic, which obviously your 305 or 1,000 users. So there is ample enough amount of users that you can deploy. Like I said before, this Tetra Smart solution is designed for medium to small businesses. It should not be in the same bracket of that of your larger organizations or national rollout of Tetra solutions. This is not that. It is for your medium and small. One thing I also want to mention, that this is not a system that can be interconnected to an existing Tetra system. This is a standalone smart solution. It cannot be interconnected. It cannot be used to extend existing Tetra networks to increase it. This is a system that has to be deployed on its own to the maximum of 5 base stations, as I mentioned before. And of course, you've got your full duplex capability and your PIBX SIP voice connections, max 1 channel per base station site. Again, like I said, this is for your smaller deployment, but again, it should be sufficient in terms of what that can cater for. All right. So what's the features that we get out of your Tetra? Before, you got your full Tetra voice and call features. If you require a list of what the standard Tetra features, I can provide that. But I'm making the assumption that by now most of you are very familiar with what the Tetra standard can offer in terms of the voice services. So that's all there. And then of course your Tetra messaging, your STS. So this system can also be used to relay other forms of information via STS packets, telemetry monitoring, all of that. The system can also cater for all of that. And then of course your security essential options pertaining to your encryption or your authentication, or a clear system with authentication, or a version of that, or a S256, or you can even opt for the national TA1 level 2 or 3 sort of encryption on the system as well. And then of course your redundancy options, because this is a distributed network and essentially the components are interswappable in terms of the easy maintenance of the outdoor base station architecture. Your redundancy in terms of your IP ring fence can be available. Your redundancy of power supplies of the base stations can be implemented, because if you're running 5 base stations with 2 carriers each, you essentially have 2 independent base stations working as one. So in the event that one fails, the other portion is still running. So it's extremely redundant in that option. And of course, you don't have to worry about having a core, like I mentioned before, the switching center of a network, because each base station is capable of running all the switcher components of a Tetra system. So in the event that one portion of a base station or outdoor base station fails, the other one picks up the slack and simply continues with running the system. And then, of course, we provide AP gateway options for PABX and other applications to be interconnected. So it is literally as easy as plug and play, in a sense, in terms of what we can offer with this solution. All right, so the high cost efficiency, in other words, what we can elaborate here is the fact that we're saving on your capex in terms of the end user. So again, I've mentioned this before and I'm reiterating it again. There's no Tetra switching server. It is easy to install. There is no building, no requirement, no racks, no anything of that sort of expensive container, air conditioning, temperature stuff that it requires. And that typically swallows a large chunk of any Tetra deployment, because you have to make sure the Tetra equipment is remaining in a cool environment and dust-free environment. That's all been taken out of the equation. And then, of course, the saving of your operational expenditure is, of course, the lower power consumption. Like I mentioned before, in the event that certain CHUs within the base station is not being used, they are being switched off or on idle, which then doesn't consume power. So we have calculated a 42% in energy saving on a 24-hour cycle of operation. Bear in mind that Tetra systems are only being used when necessary. It's not typically for constant communication like any other two-way radio communication is essentially, really. Then, of course, your redundancy options, we touched on it. Your low maintenance, because it's all a similar hardware form, there's no requirement of newer versions of power supplies or fan units or any of that. It's literally one unit that can be swapped. And because you've got that easy auto learning, let's say, for example, lightning strikes this one base station and it's completely blown, right? You can literally take a new base station, procure it, plug it into the same mounting bracket, and you can configure 1 or 2 steps, which is basically the frequency, and the rest, the base station from the rest of the network learns automatically. So to replace a base station is no longer 1 to 2 or 3 days job. It could be maybe 1 to 2 hours. So it's extremely effective on that. And of course, your high MTBF in terms of your 30 years. Right. So here is an example of the mounting component of this base station. Literally less than 10 minutes. Right. Very easy, very fast. It is literally a bracket with a couple of screws that you connect, and there it is. Because it's so lightweight in terms of the base station itself, gone are the days of requiring high weight resistant masts. If you don't have them in that specific area, you can literally scale that scenario down to make it even more flexible. And then, of course, you've got the wall installation capability as well. Straightforward, couple of bolts into concrete or brick, and you're golden. And there's it is. There's your base station mounted. Very easy. All right. Nothing really to elaborate there. And of course, the trouble-free setup. I've been saying it many times, I'm making it very easy. If you've ever had the pleasure to try and configure a standard Tetra system in terms of the subscriber management and the NMS and the frequency setups and the various IP addresses that you need to configure that doesn't clash with one another, this is like light years easier. It is literally 4 steps, 1, 2, 3, and you're finished. All right. So you power on the base station, you connect it to any PC, right, via a LAN cable, right? You log into the NMS or the NEM, you configure, update site information, you configure the IP addresses of all the base stations, frequency, your MCC and your MNS, which is components of Tetra, right? You configure all of that, Then you log in your SM, you import your subscriber licenses. In other words, you will then configure from anywhere on your laptop saying what sort of, how many subscribers I'm putting on, what is the capability of these subscribers, are they GPS enabled, are they not, do they tracking, etc. Are they going to be viewed on the dispatcher? All of that, you create a subscriber, you name the class of that subscriber, and you're done. And if you look at the complete sort of configuration step, you can do the entire system in less than an hour, your entire setup. So this is literally the fastest Tetra deployment you can possibly do in the world as of right now in terms of easy and configuration and less hassle. It's literally a web login and you configure all the thing. It's made easy. It's easy to read. It's not complicated anymore. It's not various subfolders that are hidden that you can't find to do certain things. It's all there right for you. Anybody in today's time with this Tetra Smart system can deploy and configure a Tetra system. It is very easy. All right. And then because of the fast deployment and the 1 or 2 hours, any of your end customers can say, listen, I need a Tetra system urgently, whatever the case may be. You can quote them saying, okay, we'll be done in less than a week, maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days, right? Compared to the typical deployment, which is often 1 to 1 month to 3 months, depending on the size of typical large networks. So it's extremely competitive in that sort of arena. Right, the high availability of this base station again. Right, there you can see it's one box design. It is very small, it's compact, right? Takes a small footprint, right? Low failure rate of 0.0027%, right? So it is 10 times more than the indoor base station. And then, of course, your full redundancy design, controller, carrier redundancy, and your link redundancy transmission networks. Link redundancy is typically your IP backhaul that you require for sort of what I refer to as dual directional IP from the base station to another, what we call ring fence. But yeah, it is all there for you, making sure that the system is available on a Tetra scale. So in other words, 99.99% doesn't need to fail. It's critical voice communication. All right. And then, of course, your maintenance, because you have the remote login, real-time health monitoring. Like any other Tetra system, they can give you the fault managing, sort of will tell you what is wrong with the system, what faults have incurred, where is there a congestion in terms of capacity, where is a controller unit maybe failing, all of that will tell you. The system can even automatically SMS or email if you set it up that way to notify you saying, listen, the system has encountered a problem. It is a one-click system login, capture, and export. In other words, you can literally to your customer saying, okay, let's see how your Tetra system has performed for the last week or month. And you can literally export all the details and you can show your end user customers sort of where they need to expand their network, maybe move the sensitivity or maybe increase the height of the antenna, whatever the case may be. All of that will be there. Full remote configuration and upgrade. So gone are the days.
3406.
I'm hearing voices, sorry. All right, so full remote configuration and upgrade. So in the event that there is a new software version that's available, sorry, can you just mute your mic, whoever that person is? I can't hear myself. All right, so full remote configuration and upgrade. So literally, you log in via your any laptop. You log into the web portal of that base station, and you can configure and upgrade anything. Right, that are fast. And because you only log into one of the base stations, because it's a network interconnected, you can configure any other base stations as well. And because it's auto learning functionality, what you do on base station 1, the others will learn from. So if you decide to change the frequencies, the other base stations will then obviously learn what the other frequencies are available and change accordingly. It also has a smart capability in terms of interference. It will also notify you that if you've programmed a frequency in there that modulates with another frequency, another base station perhaps, the system can flag that for you as well. And then, of course, your instant parameter changes that I've mentioned before. Literally, it cannot be easier than that. In terms of your high security, there you have it, right? Subscriber-based license control is available for you. Your high available distributed user encrypted data can be done. Your full HC Tetra encryption authentication, as I mentioned many times before. And of course, your end-to-end encryption, all right? And then of course, standard enable and disable functions that you can get on your Tetra system. All right. So let's talk about the network auto learning functionality. So one box can be a system. Expand a new site just configures exit site information, and then the rest of the site will auto learn. So I'll give you an example. So I've got node 1 and I've got node 2, and the customer has sort of decided that he needs another extra base station to cover a new area. You literally configure the exit site information from node 1 or node 2. Doesn't really matter which one. And node 3 will learn the rest automatically, which will then automatically expand that site to node 3 or node 4 or obviously maximum node 5, for example. Very easy to do, making your configuration days not days, but not even hours, maybe minutes. All right. Then I have an example of the web dispatch, and obviously with the dispatching functionality, all of the stuff that you're getting standard. All right. So it's a web-based interface. It can be built. It's sort of like a smart one, a web interface. So it can be on Google Map online or offline map scenario. You've got your voice dispatching. You've obviously got your GPS history track and your messages services. All of this can be then coupled to a recording server. Bear in mind the solution does not come standard with a recording feature. However, you can couple the recording feature on top of this, which is then unfortunately another server, all right, for the recording and the storage of said recording, all right. But again, from a dispatch perspective, GPS real-time location and geofencing, and obviously alarms coming soon is actually been developed in terms of alarms. It can notify you of panic buttons being pressed on the terminal, man down or lone worker functionality, which the system will then typically display to you, like you would expect from any other sort of dispatching platform that we are familiar with in our industry. Very easy, very user-friendly. And then, of course, I'd like to introduce one of our very popular entry-level Tetra terminals, the PT350 or the PT310. Sorry, it's cut off there. Okay, this is a Tetra terminal that's been co-developed with Sapura, so it has got all the technologies of Sapura as well as Hytera combined, so it is best of both worlds essentially. All right, it's got your standard water porting, it's got the clear audio functionality that Sapura provides, which is superior to any other Tetra terminal out there in the world. It is literally an entry level, so you don't need to buy. If your customer doesn't require all the full features like a full screen or any of the other features that Tetra terminals typically provide, you can now offer a Tetra terminal at a fraction of the cost that a typical full feature Tetra terminal cost. Any full feature Tetra terminal can be anything between 12,000 and 18,000. This is far more considerably less. And because it is on a new platform, it is of course compatible with our mobile device management server programming, the same programming platform that we use to program our body-worn cameras, our multi-modes, now the Tetra terminals as well. So we are also, as Hytera, moving forward that we have one programming platform, and hopefully in a couple of years the days are gone that we have various different forms of CPSs and programming software that we require to program various different software versions of set terminals. So we are moving in a direction. So it is MDN compatible already. So once you have MDN Lite or server component, you literally you can download the plugin of this respective terminal or its version, and you're good to configure that specific terminal. Very easy. Then, of course, in summary, all right, because this is very short and sweet, let's quickly go through the summary quickly. So the word thing is it is Tetra Smart, so it's pre-configuration, it's auto learning, there's instant parameter changes that are capable of it. You have the optional configuration service by Hytera. We can obviously assist you with the deployment of these solutions to your end user customers. You do not have to be a Tetra expert, but then again, this system does not require you to be a Tetra expert anymore. It has made it far more easier. And then, of course, the simple mechanical installation repair components. You have to see it for yourself. If you look at our outdoor base station, you'll literally see how small and intuitive the system is for that. And then, of course, the other one is our web tools. Gone are the days for application services to run in conjunction with your Tetra base stations. All of that now coincides and lives within the base station itself, making it extremely easy. All right. Okay. Let me just see if there's anything else. Then there's an installation comparison quickly for you. Just want to see here. Okay, sorry, I skipped one. So here is a technical comparison of Motorola or DAM networks in terms of our Hytera outdoor base station. You see that our TX power is quite 20 watt compared to the other two. Now again, do not compare this with your higher grade Tetra base stations that you would typically deploy in large large clients or large mines or whatever the case may be. This is for your smaller deploy, like I mentioned before. So if you compare it in that environment, outdoor base station wins on almost all of them, all of these categories. Our sensitivity is better. So minus 120 dBm in terms of your typical one. Now this is your static one, not your dynamic sensitivity. All right. And this is without diversity, right? This system does not necessarily provide you with triple diversity antenna. This is a single antenna solution, all right? And then, of course, your power consumptions extremely more versatile, more lower, all right? Operating temperature standard, obviously structure design all in one. That's the feature. The dimensions, literally mast and wall mounting, and of course the weight of these set base stations. Very, very competitive. If we look at the installation comparison quickly, from DAM to carrier, BS diversity installation needs a coupler to achieve diversity reception. All right. Outdoor to carrier base station diversity is achieved by interconnecting cables. All right. So it's literally a single antenna system. All right. With so if you put two base stations together to have your dual two carrier sort of base station site, you literally put two antennas, one antenna at each slot of the base station. Very, very easy and extremely less sort of additional equipment required, like you would find in combiners or couplers or all of that, which typically is obviously very expensive and prone to failure. All right. One fit side is also, this can be for any sort of environment, from your small railway, which just wants to cover sort of the stations that the railway travels through, remote locations, underground tunneling, refinery or oil pipelines, if you want to do it that way, depending on the size and the length. Like I said, trailer sort of configurations, and of course events. We've seen a lot of popular thing with, because this is so easy to deploy, you can literally now have a Tetra solution deployed for large scale events in a specific sports stadium. This obviously now not with the days of COVID, the days when COVID is before or past, where we have big sport events with lots of people. You cannot rely on the large complexity of what an event gives you. So you need to have something that's easy to deploy, fast and reliable. So you can't rely on POC in these sort of environments, because POC is typically congested because of the sheer amount of subscribers in that specific area. So Tetra is your best bet to provide you with that mission critical criteria. All right, and that is the presentation today. Very short and sweet. I hope I've given you some inspiration on what Hytera Tetra can do for you in today's time. If you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer that for you. Is there any questions? Okay, I see this.
Sorry, guys. Is there any specific slide that you guys want to see again or want some more clarification on? If there's no questions, maybe if there's something that you guys still want to have Ray maybe discuss again or explain a bit more about, please feel free. We have still another few minutes, so if there's anything, please don't hesitate to ask.
Okay, don't see there's any questions. All right.
Okay, thanks, Ray. So it seems, yeah, there's no questions. So then we can close today's session. Thank you so much for everyone that joined us, and you guys must have a good Tuesday, and then we'll see you guys again on Thursday. Thank you so much, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys. Cheers all.